I absolutely love this picture. I remember when I first found it on the internet, I couldn't stop laughing. It's specifically the poor guy's face. It speaks so many volumes of emotion and story that you just can't help feeling sorry for the poor guy. Right down to the caption, where it's like, let's just be friends. Keep telling yourself it's better than nothing. It says so much. You can see the girl there. She's obviously very comfortable, very happy in this guy's presence, and his face is filled with complete misery. And it's just beautiful how this picture tells so many stories that I think so many guys can actually relate to. They've been in that situation where the girl that they really care about, someone they really want something more to happen with, she only views them as a friend. And I think out of all of the queries that I get when people ask me for help with how they can go about improving their own love lives, one of the number one thing that keep cropping up over and over again is, how do I take somebody who is just a friend of mine, someone who only sees me as a friend, someone who has said those dreaded 4 words, let's just be friends, how do I take that and turn it into something different? So I thought I'd throw together a little video, slap it up on the internet for you guys to have a look at, and kind of break down the key way that you can go about trying to take a relationship that isn't really going where you want and take it somewhere else. Now, before we can talk about exactly how you go about taking somebody from being in a relationship that is just a friendly relationship and taking it into something that has a bit more attraction, we need to analyze the dynamics of a relationship first. So what we have here is a very simple model. And it kind of illustrates, I suppose, a very easy way of understanding how you go about generating attraction with somebody. If you look here, you've got the two sides of that particular triangle that's there. You've got comfort and attraction. Now, when you have an equal mix of those two forces, you end up with somebody wanting to get into a relationship with you. And of course, finding that little balance between the two and making sure you've got an equal balance of both is the key to maintaining and building some kind of a sexual relationship with somebody. Now, if you look at the green zone there, what you have there is friendship. And the idea about that is, if you only had comfort with somebody, then you'd end up being in the friend zone. You'd end up being friends with them. So what is comfort? Well, comfort can really be defined as trust and rapport, where rapport is kind of having connections with somebody. So if you imagine it, the person trusts you, you guys have got some things in common. Maybe you go to the same school, maybe you work in the same area, maybe you know the same people. And so you've got that kind of like friendly kind of rapport that's built by two people that have enough commonalities with each other. And what you end up with there is you have comfort. There's nothing beyond that. It's literally just a very plain and simple friendship based on the comfort you have with both of each other. Now, on the other side of things, you've got attraction. Now, attraction on its own pretty much labels you as a player. Attraction is the kind of person that everybody's looking at him and wondering who he is, and he's fun, he's always got something funny to say, maybe a little bit sexual. Maybe girls look at him and think, wow, he's out of my league. And they make all these assumptions that this is the kind of guy that does play around, he does mess with a lot of different girls, and he's somebody that most girls don't necessarily want to have a relationship with through fear of something bad happening to them. Now, it must be said at this point that yes, some people that are purely in comfort and are in the friend zone do end up in a relationship with a girl. These things do happen. And also, sometimes somebody who's a complete player may end up having some kind of a relationship with a girl. But it must also be said that most of these things are unique when they do happen. For example, the player, if he does end up with a relationship with a girl, it's likely to be very short and fast-lived, because that's the only kind of relationship she's typically looking for. And the guy who's in the friend zone with comfort, if he ends up having some kind of relationship, it's almost always going to be thought of as marriage and something long-term. You're never going to be in any kind of control in either of those two situations. So what we're looking at here is trying to gain some kind of control so you can filter the relationship towards the way that you want it to go. Now, as you can see here in the diagram, if you have a perfect balance of being a friend and being a player, or having comfort and having attraction, you're going to end up with a really nice balance straight in the middle, and you're going to end up with some kind of relationship going on with the girl. Now, If you do shift things a little bit too far over into comfort, you are, of course, going to find yourself stuck in that kind of friend zone kind of area. And when you first meet a girl and you first start having an interaction with her, if you're just building comfort, if you're just finding things in common with her, if you're kind of laughing at all her jokes, if she trusts you, if she feels that you guys have some kind of connection, I know some people do this a lot with NLP, you are going to find that you start to form that kind of friend zone right at the very beginning. And you can sort of feel, you haven't been told the horrible words, let's just be friends yet, but you do feel kind of trapped in that friend zone. And of course, if when she first meets you, she does see you interacting with a lot of other people, if she does see you flirting, and the very first thing you do when you meet her is maybe you're a little bit cocky, funny, maybe you opened her by using a bit of negative language and maybe gave her a sort of slight backhanded compliment, she may start to view you as a player. And there are certain girls that are going to pull away from that because they don't necessarily want to be interacted with somebody who's doing that. And there are other girls that are just going to think that, maybe you think you're too cool for school, and they're going to back off from that point. Now, what if you go too far through the player zone? What if you didn't pull back? If you just keep escalating things, you get a little bit more sexual, you kind of see she's got some kind of hesitation, and you try and plow through that by being even more sexual, even more flirtatious, you do even more cocky, funny things. Well, you do run the risk of her viewing you as a slut, somebody who really does just play around with a whole bunch of girls. And as soon as you cross that barrier, you can find yourself in slut territory, the territory where she's going to label you as somebody that she will absolutely have nothing to do with because you are too much of a player. Now, it must be said that likewise, if you go too far in the other end, if you've been sat in that friendship zone for too long, if you've built up far too much comfort with somebody, then of course you are going to hear those four dreaded words, let's just be friends. And of course, the longer that goes on, the longer you're going to end up in that horrible situation, and you're going to end up like our poor friend with the glasses in the photo at the very beginning. Now, no matter how far you go on either side, if you can bring it back to the center, then you're always going to find yourself in that nice sweet spot where you've got the nice relationship going, and you have actually got some kind of control over what's going on between you and the person that you're interested in. So what do you do? What do you do if you have moved a bit too far into the player zone? You are being a little bit too cocky funny, you're using a few too many kind of like sexual innuendos, and you find yourself trapped there. Well, what you need to do is very simple. You need to build rapport and trust. Essentially, what you're doing is calibrating your actions for that particular situation and bringing everything back in line so that you sit yourself right smack bang in the middle on the relationship side. Building rapport and trust is all about building commonalities with somebody and letting them trust you, getting them to a situation where they do trust you and they actually understand that maybe you're not a player. In order to do that, you may have to, instead of being flirty, maybe sit down, be a little bit serious for a while, and actually listen to what they've got to tell you. Maybe have a conversation about their hobbies and their passions in life and their career. Sit down and listen and stop flirting and stop playing around with all their friends, because you don't need to do that anymore. You've already got it in their minds that you are capable of being a player. You've made it clear that you can generate attraction. Now it's important for you to show that she can also trust you and that she's also got some kind of commonality with you for her to want to take things further and to ensure she doesn't get used. Now, if we look at the other side of things, if you find yourself in the friendship zone, if you find that she does trust you, you have built enough commonalities with her, and you've been speaking to her long enough that the two of you do have a connection, you still need to do something to be able to bring things back and sort of show that you can be a bit flirtatious and can be a bit of a player. And of course, the way you do that is with breaking rapport and flirting. Breaking rapport are those kind of like funnier games that end up making the other person look a little bit silly. Maybe you make a sexual innuendo that you shouldn't make. Maybe you get a little bit sexually flirtatious by smacking the bums of her and her friends, or in general just having flirty kind of fun, cocky, funny kind of behavior that's going to help swing things back until you sit in that nice middle zone and you form the relationship. Now, by using this kind of model, you can see how it's very easy to calibrate the situation from one end to the other. If you find yourself too far on one side of things, you can always swing it back the other way. So what do you do if you are trapped in that dreaded let's just be friends zone? Well, it's actually very simple. All you have to do is be sure that your breaks in rapport, or that your ability to build attraction and generate a little bit of that player vibe, are so severe that it's enough to swing it back until you hit that equilibrium. But it must be said that the longer you've been in that let's just be friends zone, the longer you've just been friends with somebody, the harder it's going to be to do that push. And sometimes going for that push is going to be enough to ruin the relationship with the person. So you have to decide whether you actually really do want to break out of that zone before you try.